Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of Parsha Shmini. In addition to containing the narrative regarding the dedication and consecration of the Mishkan, the induction of Aaron and his sons into the Kahuna, the Torah also tells us the halachas of kashrus, the ritual dietary laws. And in Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Gimel, chapter 11, verse 3, the Torah says as follows: Kol mafreses parsa v'shosa'as shesa prasos, an animal that has a cloven hoof that is completely split into double hooves, ma'alas gira, and brings up its cud, chews its cud, osa tochelu. This is an animal that you are permitted to eat. So the Torah gives us the simanim of a kosher animal: split hooves and chewing its cud. Now, the fact that the Torah gives us dietary laws indicates to us that Choshen Baruch Hu is conveying to us that you are what you eat. In other words, what I allow into my body has an impact physically and spiritually. And as such, the Rebbe Shalom is not willing to allow any influence to be ingested, which then tells us that the simanim, the signs for a kosher animal, themselves must contain some type of relevant spiritual message. So the question becomes, what is the deeper message of the split hooves and chewing its cud? And the Lubavitch Rebbe says something so beautiful. He explains specifically on the split hoof motif. He explains, Kimoshe parsa shesua l'shnei kivunim be'esu ba'ona achas. You know what's interesting about a split hoof is that literally, again, the way the Torah describes it, it's not just that there's a little split. It's a split that makes it look like two different hoofs. And the Rebbe says they effectively are two hooves pointing in two different directions. Right? One's pointing a little bit left, one's pointing a little bit right. And perhaps the metaphor that the Torah is trying to convey to us is that life is filled with these moments where we have to make a decision about which direction we want to take. Where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? You know, sometimes we often envision that these dramatic crossroads moments at life, right, where I'm faced with a major decision. Do I go this way? Do I go that way? And we think about those moments, and often in our mind, like, yes, of course, I know those moments exist, but they're few and far between. Perhaps I've experienced them in life, and if I haven't yet experienced them, I know that I will. But I think what the Rebbe is trying to convey to us is that life is filled with these kind of moments. Every single day we have to make decisions. And those decisions determine the quality of our lives. Those decisions determine the quality of our identity. Those decisions plot us on a particular course, and we're making those decisions day in and day out. As often as I'm eating, I'm also making dramatic life decisions. There is no such thing as a life decision we make that is devoid of consequences, implications, ramifications, and repercussions. Everything we do plots us in a particular kivun, plots us in a particular, and we know this from our own lives. From the time that I wake up in the morning, how I wake up in the morning, right? If maybe I'm one of those people who is zochet to fulfill the opening line of the Shulchan Aruch of kum kari, to get up like a lion, getting up one way kind of plots my life in a particular direction. How I daven, how I learn, what do I want to argue about, and what am I willing to be mevat, or am I willing to yield on? Who am I going to surround myself with? What type of exposures will I allow myself? And all of these things, all of these decisions that we are making every single day, I'm not going to say every moment, but multiple times throughout the day, have an impact on who and what we are. And the Rebbe says, this is the metaphor, this is the spiritual message of the split hoof. Choose a direction and choose wisely. You know, in one of the most gripping stories in the Torah, let me say it differently. One of the most gripping stories in the Torah is the interaction between Yoseph and his brothers. And there's so much there. There's so much power. There's so much passion. Yes, there's hatred and there's animosity, but there's love and there's connection. And in a fascinating exchange, remember again, the brothers went, this is before they sold Yosef, but the tension is mounting because Yosef already told them his dreams. So the brothers are out shepherding the sheep, and Yaakov tells Yosef to go check on his brothers. Yosef's looking for his brothers, and the Torah says, Vayimse'ehu ish v'hinei toa basada. So ultimately, again, Yosef he's wandering in the fields looking for his brothers, and an ish, a man, finds him. Vayeshaleo ish leimor mat tivakesh. And the man asks Yosef, what do you want? What do you want? Right? Literally, what do you... Now, when we look at that pasuk, we often look just as a simple question, right? The guy, Yosef's wandering around. He looks lost. The guy says, no, what are you looking for? Rabbi Soloveitchik says something so beautiful. He says, this just can't be a case of Yosef being a little bit lost in the field and some guy running into him saying, hey, Yosef, what are you looking for? If that's the case, why does the Torah need to tell this story? Why is it consequential? Rabbi Soloveitchik says something so beautiful. He says the Ish is the providential man of destiny. The Ish, whether it's the Malach Gabriel, whoever it is, but this Ish is not a regular guy. This Ish was put there at this crossroads of Yosef's life to ask Yosef a very, very simple question. Yosef, your life is about to take a dramatic turn. Ma tevakesh. What do you want out of life? What do you want? Because Yosef, you have to be able to answer this question. Because if you can't answer that question, you are going to get lost in the tumultuous sea of life turbulence that you are about to get cast into. And amazingly enough, what does Yosef answer? He doesn't even realize the impact of his words. He says, Ma tevakesh, vayomer, es achai anochi mevakesh. Yosef says, man, you know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for my brothers. Now again, you can read the pasuk in a simple way. And you can say, Yosef, yeah, I'm looking for my brothers. But again, if that's the case, why does the Torah need to record this exchange? Yosef is saying, do you know what I want out of life? I want shalom with my brothers. I want a normal, intact family. I don't want them to hate me. Es achai anochi mevakesh. Now, Yosef knew what he was looking for out of life. And because he knew what he was looking for, fast forward 2 decades, after being sold, after rising to power, he comes in contact with the brothers. He knows the brothers don't know him. He could have easily exacted revenge. He could have easily exacted retribution. They would have never known who was behind this revenge. But deep down, Yosef always knew what he wanted out of life. Es achai anochi mevakesh. I know what I want. And because I know what I want, I keep my eye on the prize. I keep my eye on the ball. I keep my eye on my brothers. I'm not going to use my newfound power and prowess to be able to exact retribution. Instead, I'm going to use my newfound power, my newfound privilege, to be able to bring the family back together. When you know what you want out of life, no matter how many twists and turns you may encounter, you're able to keep your eye on the prize. And this, says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is the meaning of the split hoof. The split hoof says in any given moment, you're at a crossroads. At any given moment, it's right or it's left. At any given moment, there's decisions that have to be made. Well, how do you know which decisions to make in life? It's very simple. We hear the words of the Ish. We hear the words of that man that Yosef met in the field. Ma tevakesh. It's the same Ish. It's the same providential man of destiny. It's the same Malach Gabriel that was Simcha Baruch Hu that whispers into our ear as well. Tell me, Shefala, what do you want? Ma tevakesh. What do you want out of life? It's a simple question. It's a simple question, yet we can't come up with a simple answer. What do you want? If I could answer what I want out of life, then in those split hoof moments, which occur multiple times throughout the day, I'll know which decision to make. The problem is, if I don't know what I want out of life, if I don't know what I want to accomplish, who I want to be, what I want to do, then when I face those split hoof moments and I have to go one direction or the other, I don't know how to make that decision. Or better stated, I don't have something that's informing that decision. You know, you can make a whole bunch of right decisions in life, but it doesn't mean it gets you closer to where you want to be. Because those decisions, right, those directions have to be informed, have to be shaped, have to be colored by Ma tevakesh. What do you want? Life is filled with these split-hoofed moments of decision. And if you don't know Ma tevakesh, what you want out of life, then it is virtually impossible to choose correctly. This, says the Rebbe, is the entire message of the laws of kashrus. I too am split-hoofed. I might have one foot, but spiritually I'm split-hoofed. Because in any given moment in life, there are these 2 pathways in front of me. Like the hoof that points in 2 different directions, so too my foot could go right, my foot could go left. In any given moment, I could choose a different direction. But in order to know that I'm choosing wisely, I have to have a life vision. I have to have a life plan. The Malach was preparing Yosef. Yosef, you are about to encounter the most difficult and turbulent circumstances of your life. And the only way to keep your head above water is if you could answer one simple question, Ma tevakesh. What do you want? If you could answer that, you'll be all right. Not going to be easy, but you'll be all right because you'll make the decisions necessary to get you to es achai anochi mevakesh. Yosef knew what he wanted, and therefore with all the tumultuousness, all the turbulence, he was able to keep focused. Dear friends, we too have to answer. Ma tevakesh. What do we want out of life? Especially in these days of sphira, where we're journeying towards, right? These days are so profound because Of course, there's a mitzvah of counting the Omer, but they're regular days. They look like regular days. But yet, I know Pesach is in the rearview mirror, and Shavuos is ahead of me, and I'm on this journey. And I know that I need to get myself from my newfound freedom to a newly forged, concretized, and energized relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By Shavuos, I know I have to get there. That's what I want. That's my motivation. I want to self-actualize. I want to become the best version of me. I want to operate on all cylinders. I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to be regular. I want to bust out of those chains of mediocrity and accomplish something great. That's what I want. And now that I know that, when I'm faced with the decisions of day-to-day life, then at the end of the day, I know what to choose. Because like Yoseph, who had a vision for his life, if I don't have it already, I'm going to get myself a vision for my life. And so when I face those split hoof moments of going in one direction or the other, I know what to choose. I know where to go. But there's one more caveat. The caveat is, there's also another simon about chewing your cud. What happens when an animal chews its cud? Not to get too graphic over here, right? The animal eats, regurgitates. Sometimes in life you have to chew your cud as well. Because sometimes we choose a vision, but maybe it's not the right vision. Sometimes we choose a vision when we're young, and we forget that the vision also has to change as we get older. As we change, the vision has to change. But a lot of times in life, we're often stuck in our initial life vision, our initial life outlook, our initial hashkafas, without recognizing that sometimes we too have to evolve. Sometimes, again, it's not just enough to be split-hoofed and realize you have to make a decision one way or the other and allow your matavakesh vision to inform which direction. But sometimes I have to rethink matavakesh, because what I wanted when I was 20 can't be the same thing that I want when I'm 40. And when I'm 40, it has to be something different than when I'm 60. And every stage of life brings with it a different matavakesh. And I have to be brave enough, and I have to be strong enough to be willing to rethink what I want out of life. I have to chew my cud. I have to be willing to regurgitate that life vision, chew it, swallow it. Now, sometimes the same life vision works for many stages of life, but sometimes it has to be reimagined. Sometimes I have to regurgitate my matavakesh, my life vision, and recognize I need a different life vision so that I could choose wisely for the current moment I am in life. Simple simanim, simple signs of a kosher animal, become the very telltale signs, the very compass for a successful life. Recognize that at any given moment, we are always at a crossroads. Choose wisely. But to choose wisely, you have to have a life vision for what you want to do. But then recognize that the life vision you chose for yourself at one stage of life may need to be revisited at subsequent stages of life. Find the courage to chew your cud. And if you need to come up with a new matavakesh, find the strength and the wisdom to do so that when you find yourself in those split hoof moments of life, I know how to choose wisely. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.